Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio. And today we are so excited to be joined by Andie Mitchell and Sabrina Kohlberg, the host of the podcast Pop Culture Moms. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, we're very excited to have this conversation because given the nature of our show, we do talk about, there's a lot of overlap in things that I think that we both discuss. But before we get into that, can you please tell our audience more about yourselves, introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm an author of a memoir and a cookbook, but now I just podcast with my best friend, Sabrina. And we met 20 years ago and started this like really just intense best friendship that has lasted us where we're talking on the phone daily, which is, I think, why we decided let's start a podcast if we're going to be using the airtime. Like, let's just get someone recording this. And so, yeah, so I'm Andie, and this is my best friend, Sabrina. Sab, you take it over.
Yeah, I'm Sabrina Kohlberg. I am a producer at Good Morning America and now a podcaster with Andie for Pop Culture Moms from ABC Audio. And we are pop culture obsessed. And I have a 3 and a 5-year-old. So I'm also really in the trenches of motherhood. So Pop Culture Moms was kind of the perfect combination of our interests. We talk all about moms and pop culture and what we can learn from them while we're parenting.
And I am very, very excited. We love talking about pop culture here. Samantha and I, huge nerds about that, so I can't wait to get into that. But how did the two of you meet?
College, where all the beautiful love stories start.
Yeah. We lived on the same floor of a dorm our freshman year of college. And I want to say we met the first night, but maybe it was the second night. I'm not really sure. But we met pretty immediately and we became best friends, as soon as we met, basically.
Like we had an extra bed. Like my roommate is also my stepsister, and we had a trundle in our small dorm room. And Sab just basically moved right in. And she only lives like 5 doors down, so it was not necessary, but we were watching a lot of TV. So we needed her to just be able to lay down and watch shows with us.
Yeah.
Yes, I totally get that. So through that, you had this love of entertainment. You said that you're in the trenches of like momhood. Can you tell us about where this podcast idea came from? When did that become a thing?
Yeah. So we spoke on the phone pretty much every day of our adult lives, but especially when we both had children. Andie had her children just a little bit before me. So mine are 3 and 5, hers are 4 and 6. And I was on maternity leave and we were in the pandemic, and I would just call Andie every day and talk to her about
everything.
Everything. Yeah. But like I would need
spare no
advice.
detail, guys.
Yeah. I would need advice on what to do because her children were a little bit older. But then I would also just want to talk about whatever TV show I was watching the night before. And we would just go on. And Andie had the idea that we should, be recording and sending it out to the masses. And we just thought it was the perfect topic. Like, we love the women that we see on television who are playing moms, and we're so interested in that. And it's just a funny, we're not parenting experts, and we don't want to pretend to be parenting experts. We don't want to be giving anyone advice. But it is funny to talk about like Lucille Bluth and what she's good at as a mom and what she's not good at as a mom. And it's just a funny way to look at parenthood.
Oh, yes. We have had a lot of episodes about depictions of mom, so I can't wait to pick your brains about that. But one of the things before we get into that is did you, like, you're having these conversations, and for like younger listeners, I used to call my best friend on the phone and we would watch X-Files together from a distance. And we would like be like, oh, let's get into this. But like those things of seeing something in entertainment and sharing that, and in this case being moms, and kind of picking apart what you're seeing in entertainment versus the reality of your experience. Was that something that you found was, you've got this stress going on in your life, and this was like, okay, we can discuss and like have this release almost?
Yeah. I mean, it's all of the things that like, you know, art does for us that like, I think especially when we first thought of this idea a couple of years ago, you know, our kids were very little. And so we're really like in the trenches, and like a lot of life with very young kids. There's a ton of joy, no doubt, but it's a lot of hard, mundane days that are long and sometimes grueling and repetitive. And so I think like you look forward to your shows that you have, or like while you're feeding a baby, like you're watching a show, maybe you're watching it in the middle of the night when you wake up to be with the baby. So it's I think that we like the escapist nature of watching movies and TV. But then also like it feels nice when you watch something and it resonates and makes you feel less alone. I mean, for sure. And thirdly, it's like there's something that happens. It says a lot, the judgments that we have about these depictions of women, like whether we like them or don't like them. It's like a very reflective of, you know, who we are or aren't, or wish we were, or hate about ourselves. And so I think it's what we found is that talking about like a Lucille Bluth is more illuminating sometimes than talking to you about your mom, because you feel freer with the buffer of like, we're talking about this fictional character, and it just exposes, I think, a lot of what we struggle with or aspire to be, you know?
Yeah, it's a little bit safer to have a judgment of a person who's not real. We don't really want to judge a mother who's trying her hardest and doing her best, and we don't want to say like, oh, she sucks. But we can say like Lucille Bluth kind of sucks sometimes, but also she's really funny. And it's an easier way to look at the way people are parenting and talk about it without a judgment or without being cruel or not understanding people.
I feel that's so hard. I can talk about fictional characters way easier than I can talk about.
We have such strong judgments about them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So true.
Absolutely. And so, to be clear, Samantha and I are not moms. The show title often confuses people, but we are not moms. But we have talked a lot about the depiction of moms in entertainment. And I know that's something that clearly both of you know a lot about and have had these conversations about. So one of the things I would like to do, if you could we go over the evolution of this depiction of moms in our media and TV and film?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, if you think back, I mean, it's obviously not the first mom or the most famous mom, but people always are thinking about like Mrs. Cleaver from Leave It to Beaver, like just this perfect mom. And that was really what a lot of the depiction of motherhood was like. It was just this mom who was so devoted, and her only purpose in life and her only goal in life was to be a mom and to serve her family and her kids. And that was all people were seeing at that time. And over the years, we've gotten really much more complex versions of motherhood that we see on TV. And there are some people who hate being moms, and that's what the show is about. And there are some people who are struggling, and there are some people who are kind of just like a mediocre mom. Like the more we see, Andie always says this, the more we see, the more we're able to be compassionate to people.
to be more fully ourselves. It's like going from the one-dimensionality, the lack of nuance of like a June Cleaver, to then like we interviewed Katie Segal, talked about Peg Bundy and how like, you know, she was funny and that she like had disdain for taking care of her kids and her husband and all of this stuff. But it was important to see a different mom, to see a mom that we even label as quote unquote bad. It's like that. It goes back to I'm not enlightening either of you, but there's like representation of any kind generally makes us in our world better because we have more empathy or we feel less alone. And there's just a greater context for women now. I think like there's so many more shades to the moms that we see. And it's sometimes the being the mom is like, we know the woman has kids, but that's not what we're watching her do. We're not really like in her struggle. So it's just, I think women have a much broader ability to like be fully themselves in whatever way that may be. Although, I mean, we still have farther to go. I don't want to say that we're not like men yet.
We're trying.
Yeah. And it's one of the things that's come up for us on this show is we've gotten a lot of messages from listeners who have written about very vulnerable messages about how this perfect mother trope that they saw on TV, it wasn't the reality when they like had kids, and they felt guilty about it because that's what we see is it's like, this is the best thing that's ever happened. You're so happy all the time. It's just, it fulfills you completely, all of these things. So having that representation and having that nuance and having it change has been really important and continues to be. But it is interesting to me that it's still, that idea is in the United States still very much like, okay, the woman is the mother and she's going to do this.
Yes. Well, she's going to carry the mental load probably, even if there's like an equity in the household. She's going to be in
charge. Yeah.
She's going to be like mentally running this thing. And I think, I mean, when you speak about expectations versus reality, it's like Sabrina and I mean, arguably have seen every movie, every show. Don't quote me on that, but most of them. And even still, like we discussed that both of us after having our first baby, you realize like, oh, I don't think I can be that like perfect mom I thought I was going to be, that like didn't need time to herself or that didn't like yell sometimes or like wasn't resentful of like my husband doing something for himself and not for the family. You know, like it's just, I feel like it's just, it's like with parenting, it's like until you're in it, I think you really try to save yourself, protect yourself by thinking, well, but I'll probably do it really well. Like, I think I'll probably do it really well and maybe even perfectly. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But that's like the only, I think you have to have that blind faith in yourself. Otherwise, why even bother trying?
Yeah, I guess. You're like, I get it. I know psychology. I read a couple books.
I have read a ton of books about
I'm doing
this.
a lot of work on myself. But it's like, I think it just proves like so much. People say this, but it is harder in ways that you can't even anticipate. And so, yeah, I think there's something to, like when we see moms who are struggling, I think you feel like a solidarity. And then also, like, unless you're watching like specific depictions of women, like, you know, childcare in the United States, paid leave in the United States, there's not. The reality for most moms is nothing glamorous, you know, not even close to what we think it is, even on a sitcom, like where you don't have to be rich. Like it's very painful and difficult and the days are long for women.
When I was a little baby intern, I used to edit this show called Mothership. And it was about motherhood. And one of the hosts on there was like, she said something that always stuck with me. It's like running through molasses every day.
Oh my goodness, it is. That's what we say to ourselves. I honestly, Sabrina and I say, how do people do this? Like people with far less, let's just say, capabilities than me are doing this every day for millennia? Like, what's happening? Yeah, it's really, there's not like an end where there's like a break, because even if you had a break, you couldn't like really restore enough to feel like your heart isn't walking around outside your body. So it's just very, it's, I mean, look, I know I'm saying it like it's all these like hardships and negative things, but it is like, I can unequivocally say it is knowing all of how hard it is and running through molasses every day. It's still the greatest. It is the greatest. It's just not going to feel like that hour to hour or even day to day. Like, but there's a lot of overall, I think, benefit to like just the bond that you have with your children and the bond that you have with other women now. Like, I think, and dads too. I mean, so that's been nice. Like, kind of, it's a very democratizing thing to have children because you're all like, everyone's cleaning up poop, you know? Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We're all in it.
Yes. But that is definitely something we've talked about before. I'm sure you have experience with either through your conversations or the podcast, because you've talked to a lot of amazing different people on the podcast.
We've gotten really lucky. Yeah. We love it.
It's great.
Like, it's amazing. And every episode we go, I'm so sorry you have to do this with us. Like, just to every guest, like, but
also
paid
we
you
get
to be here?
so starstruck. Like, we just did yesterday, I think was like our 25th or 26th interview, because, you know, we're just finishing the second season, and Andie said, like, I'm so starstruck. And then I was like, we've said this in every single episode.
Like, it's new. Like, at the beginning, I'm like, you guys, guess what? We're starstruck. But we are, because it's like, we're meeting people, like, our worlds are colliding. Like, past me watching One Tree Hill is meeting the character that I, you know, watched for so many years. I don't know. It's very, very meaningful people to us.
Well, like you said, you're all dealing with poop now, so
exactly.
That's right.
Which is so nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, I was wondering if you, through your pop culture knowledge, do you have like some tropes you see with moms that just come up over and over again that you can break down?
One big one is that the cool mom was like the first one that I mean, Mean Girls popularized it with Amy Poehler's character as Mrs. George, and she's permissive. And now we see, like, on Euphoria, if you watch Alana Ubach, her character Suze Howard is like a cool mom, a little bit different, a darker maybe representation. But there's just this idea of the cool mom trope of a permissive parent, a parent who wants to befriend her daughter or son and maybe like build a relationship on like, we're equals. And so there's not a lot of authority there. So we can see the problems like for kids and the problems for the parents there. But that's a big one that we see. It's not quite as much, but the wine mom is kind of like that as well. Like that, with the permissive parenting. But yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, then we've talked about like bad moms, quote unquote, bad moms, which is like, you know, we love the movie Bad Moms, but just in general, we see like these moms who seem to be falling short, and that's a trope and it's funny. But I think that's a really useful one, because then we realize that we're all kind of falling short.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's kind of a bad mom and everyone's kind of a good mom. So that's a good one.
God, I one trope that we talked about Lucille Bluth earlier, but like this, like Lucille Bluth, kind of like Emily Gilmore as a less exaggerated version of that. But there's like this mom that's a little bit like judgy and controlling and maybe, you know, wishes that her daughter were different. I guess you get that sense. That's like I love that mom on shows. I always love that mom. Like, I don't know if you guys watched season 5 of Fargo, but Jennifer Jason Leigh played like this, like kind of elitist mom, and you don't really like her for the whole thing, but like ultimately it's a great character because they use their shrewdness ultimately to like help the child that they appear to be judging so much. That's like a commonality. So
yeah. And I think we probably all feel judged by our parents. So it's nice to see these ones on the shows that are at least funny about it.
Yeah. Did you? Because we had a big discussion in one of the big mother tropes, especially like Mrs. Doubtfire, that growing up, we were told this mother is a really bad mother. But then you really think on it as an adult or when you become a parental figure, and you're like, no, she was actually great. Like, who out of all the characters you've seen do you think are some of the most misunderstood mothers who was seen as a villain, but today is like, no, actually, they had it right?
Well, we talk about it a lot with like Emily Gilmore. Like if you watch Gilmore Girls and if you watched it when you were young, Lorelai was the goal. Right. And Emily was like this, she wasn't the villain, but she was sort of like the killjoy. Like she was ruining the good time. She was forcing them. And now that we're older, we're like, well, I mean, it's not that unreasonable to just ask them to come to dinner once a week if you're giving them, you know, thousands of dollars for college or high school.
Right. Or like she's mired in like traditional like values and rules and etiquette. But then you're like, well, there is stability there, I guess. Or there's like a structure that I think you notice with your kids, like helps them. Even though it sounds like such a bore, it's like very grounding to kids to have kind of like regularity and routine and like, all of those. I guess sometimes like the parameters make you feel safer to, live your life. But yeah, Emily's a big one. We have, who else? I mean, when we were interviewing and talking to Peg Bundy herself, Katie Sagal, I did say, like, it's a joke that Peg Bundy was always like, bitterly hating her husband and like she's not making dinner and stuff. But like, she didn't seem like she was like unhappy. And I think I like realized, well, there is benefit to the fact that she was making sure that she was living her life on her terms. And it was funny, played for comedic effect. And I'm sure that maybe her kids felt neglected at times. But as I age, realized the value of like, I just want my mom to take care of herself because I have a lot of guilt and tether to feeling like she sacrificed everything. I mean, I think this is probably pretty universal, but like, I just feel all the things my mom doesn't give herself or hasn't historically. And it does feel like this like unbearable debt that she would say, release yourself. You don't owe me anything. But it feels like, God, I would love to just hear that she's like taking a trip or like spending money on like a massage or something. And so I think that like I look at Peg Bundy now and I'm like, maybe there is some sort of gift in that like Kelly and Bud can look at her and think, well, she's okay.
Yeah. She's finding her joy, for sure.
She's finding her joy, you guys. Stop being so judgmental.
It's been hilarious. For some reason, all of these old shows that I have not watched in years keep popping up with like TikTok trends and such, and Peg Bundy keeps popping up. And I'm like, man, first of all, how like she's so young as this like mother of teenagers with this group of people.
She told us she has the wig.
Does she really?
She told us she has it in her house. And we were like, that's so exciting.
I know like her character on that and Sons of Anarchy, like when people talk about her as an actress and seeing the two types of mom she played, I know she's like, people talk about the range that she ends up showing and that people generationally do not realize how she has played these roles so differently because they were like way too young or not even born yet for like Married with Children, but then Sons of Anarchy and you're like, she's a badass and like everybody's very afraid of her from the little that I've seen. But it's kind of funny to see her play those roles so perfectly, but she still holds that mother matriarch role so well.
Yeah. Agree. I remember, and I don't have the facts to back this up, and I don't think I really want to stand behind myself here, but I never liked the mom from Seventh Heaven. I don't know if anyone's watched it. There was always something about her, like maybe like a martyr complex that she had. I was always like angry at her. Anney, I believe her name was. Similarly, I didn't love the mom on Parenthood, Camille. I think like there are times when I just wasn't that happy with Camille.
I love we're talking about these because like I had a back and forth. The entire Parenthood had so many like variations of motherhood that I could not quite grasp. Like they did a good job in making sure they were all very different. Culturally even, but I was just like, this is a really interesting conversation in the show in itself on who they're portraying as not the good mom necessarily, but the normalized mom, I guess.
Yeah, agree.
Wow. I love this so much.
Sorry, Seventh Heaven. Sorry, Parenthood.
Don't apologize to Seventh Heaven.
Sorry, guys.
Honestly, I cannot remember. I am racking my brain to remember that mom. Because all I remember is the teenagers all not liking each other.
Yeah, she was always in a hot flash. And same. And look, same. I have night sweats. And I have since I had my children 6 years ago. But I just remember her. Like, one thing that I really hate that my mom does is like someone who, like, I don't like a martyr. I would rather you never do anything for me than do something for me and then make me know that, like,
make me feel bad about it.
That you had to do this for me. Like, it's not a gift. So I get really triggered by that kind of behavior. And I always think like the mom was just she was always on the verge of a meltdown. And I could feel it. It was palpable, the whole show for me. Now, I haven't seen it since it debuted.
Right. And I do think you're remembering it very differently than it occurred.
Okay. Sabrina, not today. Not
but you
today.
Know what? This is one of those conversations and trying to remember because I'm thinking of like Home Improvement and that mom, what Jill had to go through.
Jill.
I did. I really this was one of those main tropes of like making the mom the killjoy, too responsible, having to not only take care of the 3 sons, but her husband who acts like a child as well. Like remembering all of that.
Right. And she's basically taking care of the neighbor with his head behind the fence. You know, she was doing too much.
She was doing so much. And like they never really credit her. And she is literally the butt of a lot of the jokes, it seemed, or whether like the foil in all of the conversations. But like what I remember versus what actually was, Step by Step.
Oh, yes.
With Suzanne Summers being that mother, playing both the stepmother and the mother. And like, there's so many shows that I have to go back on in which the mothers are there and the ideal. Well, at least Step by Step was a little different because at least Patrick Duffy, what that was his name, right? He was at least handsome and like likable from what I remember.
I think so.
As versus and Suzanne Summers being gorgeous. Like at least they kind of matched. The newer sitcoms, they don't have that.
You guys are enjoying your relationship.
Right.
Because that wasn't like a common thing. Like there was like you said, there's like the wife being the ball and chain. She's the killjoy, and then the husband, just the long-suffering husband.
Yeah.
But I think in Step by Step, you did get the sense that they were happy to be together. But that's because were they both? They're in second marriages?
Second marriages, because it was the kids coming together.
Coming back
Step by
forming
step,
a new
day by
family.
day. Yeah. Fresh start over. Okay.
Yeah. But like all of these moms are such an amazing, like, they are never really the caricatures like we see when characters are portrayed. When we see sitcom moms, like others are caricatures of themselves almost. We have the nerd being overly nerdy. We have, like those levels.
Right,
the mother has to be like seemingly the normal part of the family that keeps it together, right?
Yeah. And I think for a long time, like definitely in like the 90s, they didn't even really put any effort into writing the mother because they were like, the mother's just going to be there. We're going to make everyone else funny. Like she'll just sit here.
Yeah. Or if you're a Full House, you don't even need a mother. Like,
oh God,
that's a major trope.
Don't I know it?
How many movies are the mom's just dead?
Right.
Yeah.
Because they're like, if the mom was here,
none
of this would have happened. Because she would have been like, stop what you're doing now.
Right. But I think it's kind of interesting. And then that kind of leads into the whole stepmother trope too, and how that's kind of grown and changed and has like become a different conversation in itself, whether it's a Lifetime movie or something like Step by Step, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, because like Stepmom with Julia Roberts, like,
it's great.
I think that movie did a really good job of like, there's a moment where you can side with both of them. You can understand what Susan Sarandon's character is kind of like feeling like she's losing. And then you can see that Julia Roberts is she's at like, a disadvantage because she's new to the family. And so I think that's maybe, it's not comedic. It was a very heartfelt movie in a lot of ways, but it's broad strokes, but they think we saw some more nuance than like the evil stepmother, which had like pervaded pop culture for forever. But that, or even like in Cinderella Story, which was Jennifer Coolidge just being the absolute best. just the evil stepmom, but she was great and sassy. But yeah.
Oh,
I think
Parent Trap, man.
Oh, don't get her started.
Don't get me started on Parent Trap.
You don't want to talk about it right now.
I mean,
she's
just horrible
lambasting.
mothers.
Horrible. You want to talk about
horrible
talk
parents
about someone who's
there.
angry.
Yeah. Like just getting a divorce and deciding like, we'll just split these kids up because we don't want to deal with each other. And we're not even going to ever see the other kid again. It's mind-boggling.
Simple as breaking up a twin pack. No problem.
Well, Samantha and I love horror. We love
me too.
horror.
Okay, no, like PhD in horror. Excuse me, right here. Go ahead.
Yes.
Tell me more. Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Because we've been discussing for a while, a lot of these tropes you can see like, the 50s trope, women stay at home. In the 80s, she's trying to work and balance all those things. But I feel like horror has a separate track where we can see what we're anxious about around women and horror. And that has evolved a lot. And I feel like motherhood does come up a lot in horror movies, and also things like infertility, child death, pregnancy, abortion, like
Excellent.
all of these things. What do you think about that?
That makes so much sense because, I mean, I don't think this is new. Like my most visceral primal fear is that something will happen to my children. A very easy thing to tap into that, like how precious and vulnerable like our young are. But I think you're right. And I didn't think about that. There's a lot of horror movies now, some of the better ones that like are really like metaphors for grief. For like separations, things like that. And yeah, so maybe you do see a lot more of the like inner, harder aspects of the psyche that a mother's going through. Like I think about, like the Babadook, obviously, the mother, and then her follow-up to that. Did anyone see The Nightingale?
Yes.
Oh no. Did you see? I it was one thing, like I can watch a lot of stuff. I truly had to turn it off at points because it was just so affecting. So it's like, it's very, people are like opposed to like slashers in certain ways and they're like grotesque and gory and things. But it's like when you play on like very real loss or, the fear of it, it's, oh gosh, it's like everything on the line. Yeah.
Right. And we talked about the fact that because when it comes to pregnancy and the vulnerability of women in general and those who can get pregnant, like they really use that as a scope of like, be careful because you're going to be easily possessed, or these children are going to be possessed, or like that level of conversation where like you have to remember what having a whole separate being means that you may lose control of yourself and you are not going to know who you are. Are you like, it's kind of this like foreign aspect of taking this, what we see as anatomy and biology and miracles for a lot of people, and they use that as but there's a foreign object in your body and it is going to get you. Are you ready? Like it's such a horrible level.
That's so true.
And it comes after, again, people who can get pregnant. It is very specific in like working on those fears, so it seems.
Yeah, and you're right, because even in the children, where there's like a bad child, like a bad seed, it's like moms, I know you think you have intuition and instinct here. Do you really know your kid?
Right.
Do you like that's hard because like a lot of times you're making these gut calls and you think you're doing the right thing. And those movies play on the fear of like, what if I'm not? Like, what if I don't really know my child? What if I don't know what's best for them or they need more discipline or whatever it is? So yeah, it is. There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a favorite horror movie? Like, of recent years, anyway. You could say within the last 5 years that has come out. And don't say Hereditary because
that haunts me.
I know
that one haunts me. That was too much. That one was too much.
Same. And Toni Collette should have won the Oscar. Go ahead.
She should win for so many.
But I
things.
mean, again, that's like a loss of child.
Yeah, that's a real motherhood one. Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like it's so prevalent in so much of our horror. And then having that responsibility to care for this child. And as you said, that being diving into that fear. If I feel like so much that I've seen, we're slowly working on an episode on it right now because I feel like there's been over the past few years a lot of movies that have been delving into that. And we're going back to the Babadook, which isn't that recent, but fairly recent. That was a movie I watched and I was like, oh my God, her kid is so annoying. It felt refreshing because she acknowledged her kid was annoying. Yeah. It wasn't trying to paint this perfect picture.
Totally.
And at the end, she does arrive at the fact no, it's a mess. I have this grief. I'm accepting it. I love him, but it's not perfect. And it felt very new to me.
Right.
Yeah.
I think one of the movies we talk about a lot and we go back and forth about being horror and sci-fi and thriller is Alien.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get me started.
Sigourney.
Go.
Yeah, we had a full-on episode because Anney was able to really dig deep in the fact that this is about womanhood. This is about vaginas and fear of birth and fear of being alone and fear of being single.
Wow.
And then you start really digging into it and you're like, oh, man. It really is. And then shifting that alien scene being no, men should absolutely be afraid and need to understand the levels of birthing in this alien scene, which is so pivotal to so many people and being that's one of the grossest and surprising scenes I've ever seen. But it had a huge representation of giving birth. And you're oh, damn. Well, that was a thing that. But movies like that, it kind of gets us and gets me when Anney brings out these perspectives. She's I've written essays, Samantha, are you ready? And we're going to talk about this horror movie and its representation of how they take motherhood for granted. And okay, that's what we're doing today? Okay. And Alien is one of those. We had that conversation about WandaVision as well, which was that whole TV series.
I didn't see WandaVision.
You didn't? Well, it's really great kind of ideology of what people think will happen with child loss and women losing control of themselves.
Okay. Yep.
In grief. And now with Agatha all along, I feel like as I turn back into her own resentment toward her mother, and I've not even seen many episodes, it's just people talking about it, and that's what it seems to be turning. So we're seeing so many things that you would think we would eventually get away from. But when it comes to very focused horrors like this, some of my favorite are the Wayne movies. What are those? That was that couple who actually just got into a lot of situations that supposedly go around hauntings. Annabelle, but it's that other one.
Yeah.
Conjuring.
Conjuring. But that
James
has
one. Oh yeah.
All of that is about motherhood. The basis of the haunting, the basis of why they're being haunted is based on children and motherhood. And I find it fascinating that they're so focused on that. It almost wants to not detract, but it does love the idea of those relationships, the motherhood and the children, the parenthood and the children. And it finally does come to a redeeming factor of being saved by love or memories of love, any of those things. But it has to take them in such a torturous way.
Right. Yeah. Well, if your mother is your initial safety in this world, your home truly in this world, it's I think that is also tapping into a very primal fear in all of us.
Right.
So yeah, it's true.
Well, and that's, kind of a joke, but a very popular trope is you blame the mother in horror. It's the mother's fault if the child.
And actually we stand by that. No, I'm kidding. I like to make the joke, if it's not one thing, it's your mother. And I do think so we always joke about that. And then like our moms will be like, oh, it's always the mom's fault, you know. But and then we say, but it kind of it is. It kind of is. It kind of, you know.
Yeah. And I think going back to one of the best and classic horror movies for me, which was very much based on that, is Carrie. Like it.
Oh my God! In her dirty pillows.
Yeah, it holds up still.
Yeah,
you know, in like it's being the genre that it is, the conversation, text on religion, the mother, periods, like all those things is exactly what a lot of everyone fears, especially periods. Yeah, I hate it. So you know, it's all about that. But I find like those types of tropes, it just continues on. It still works.
Oh yeah. I think it's like there's a central question in like a Carrie type movie where, like, let's just say, like, for instance, that your child is not who you wanted them to be or thought they should be, or they're not following like, you know, moral, ethical rules or whatever it is, which this ties into religiosity. I think we all think about that, and my sense is always, and not to sound too pat about it, but that like, there's nothing I wouldn't change about my entire life and self based on how my kids develop or need or whatever it is. Like you change the world around your kid. You know what I mean? Not if your child's like a terrible person or anything like that, but you know. So I think when we see those like the parents whose rigidity, like I guess makes the child become a psychopath, maybe. Okay. Yeah, I think like I'm very judgmental, like maybe of people who are expecting their children to fit into a pre-existing set of ideologies.
That makes sense.
And I did judge Anney from Seventh Heaven earlier for probably similar things. And I'm very sorry about that.
I feel like we're going to need you to watch it again and report back.
She's going to report back. Hey, you guys.
Podcast
hey, you guys.
Of Seventh Heaven.
Easy. Take it easy. Take it easy.
I would love to hear back from you about that.
Coming back to this.
Yes. Okay. So one of the things that I know you both have talked about is, you know, sort of what's the improvements we're seeing in the representation of the mom in our media, but also how it could get better, how it could look. Can you talk about that?
Oh gosh.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're getting better. We're definitely being more honest about the hard parts of motherhood, but I think I would love to see more representation of the mental load and the things that the mom, besides childcare, like all of the other things that a mom has to be in charge of and that a mom is doing. Like I would love to see that talked about more and shown more. Because I just genuinely think like a lot of men truly do not think that there's anything extra the women are doing that they're not. So I'm like, we need to be showing a little bit about, you know, how much we're all doing.
I think Bridgerton is a show that we've talked about. We like the last season was the biggest streaming season of a show ever. And I think that tells us that however pulpy or soapy it is, like women like to be able to have their fantasies or their desire be centered. We don't want the narrative of every story to be led by the male gaze or male desire as we've seen it so many times before. So I think like maybe a show that it doesn't have to be like gratuitous, but to show women pursuing desire, having desire, being like real, like sensual creatures that we are, that doesn't feel like it's sacrificing the mom's ability to be a good mom because she's like going after like a you know, an affair or something like that. You know, I think that might be, I think that Bridgerton tells us that there's a lot of women who want to see more of that part, that aspect of themselves on TV. And I think like moms, I think that that might make sense.
Yeah. I think a lot of the stuff we've been talking about hasn't centered the mom. Like, you know, the 90s sitcom, she was the like, let's keep this on track. So something that's more centering on motherhood and not using it as some kind of plot device or whatever it is. I'm curious, have you talked about, probably yell at me, MILFs? Have you talked about this?
Seb, have we?
We've desperately wanted to.
Because there's MILF Island.
Yeah, we've been reaching out to some MILFs we'd love to chat with.
Yeah.
But we haven't.
I think it's another trap.
Yeah.
Another trap. Like we have referenced like Stifler's mom and like Stifler's the idea of like that, like the May-December relationship that like what were we talking about with that
Garcelle Bouvet, we talked about May-December relationships.
Because she was in, so Garcelle Bouvet of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and an illustrious acting career in her own, she's in a movie that's like a newer version of like How Stella Got Her Groove Back. And so she's in this movie dating a much younger man. And so we see like the woman as the cougar or whatever. But this did get us talking about MILFs and how I just think it's like, I don't know, but I just think like when I was little, my mom, she wasn't trying to look like sexy. I don't know, that she wasn't so obsessed with like looking cute, or maybe she was. I think she probably was, because that's just what it is to be a woman, to be aware of your appearance. But I think it's such a trap, like that, get your body back after baby and like then try to look like sexually desirable for longer. For who? For me? I don't think it's for me. I don't think it's, and if it determines that it is for me, I think we'd also have to dig deeper and say like, okay, it's for you because you have been conditioned under the patriarchy.
Yeah.
So it's very tough. Like, tough. Yes, I want to look good and things like that. But I just think like, you know, we joke, but like you look back at pictures of like moms in like the 80s and 90s and like everyone was wearing a turtleneck with a crew neck sweatshirt over it. And like, you know, an acid wash jean that didn't fit. Like, and it was fine. Yeah. And now we're seeing mom, like, I mean, now I only wear athleisure every day. So I really shouldn't have a platform to speak on. But I do think it's like, I don't want to have to be so like, I don't want to try to be hot ever again. I'm tired. I don't think
I'm
so.
all done with that. Yeah. But I do think, like my mother was always trying to be cute. And I think it's exhausting. Like I was even talking to her on the phone yesterday and I was like, who cares? You're almost 70 years old. What do you care?
Yeah, when can we let it all go?
You know? So I do think, trying to be the MILF is very exhausting. And it's not for me. It's not a life for me at all.
All right, so we're going to take that off your list. No, that's not part of your bucket list. Not to be called a MILF at any point in time.
Now, would I love to? Yes, but it's not something that comes naturally to me, so I'm just going to move on.
It's been too hard. It's been too troubling for me throughout.
Different people have different tastes. And men always talks about how they love to see women dressed down. So you may be someone's MILF and you just don't know it.
Yeah, maybe.
They didn't tell it to your face, so, you know.
Just pull it off. Let me know. You guys write in. Let me know.
Most of our very promulgating all
I'm sure all of your male listeners will they're getting on their computer right now.
We have good conversations. We do. Yeah, but it is interesting because even in the depictions of mothers today, and I was thinking about parenthood, as well as Stranger Things, it is that competition to be desired by the younger person or competing with a younger person. And I am thinking specifically like in the Parenthood where I cannot remember who the characters are, but the main couple with the oldest son, his wife, he goes into the record business and they have a secretary and because he is so nice to her that she thinks that maybe that they could have chances.
Is this Peter Krause and Monica Potter's character?
Those two characters.
Yes. Okay.
But he, you know, has that younger secretary she's a big actress, and I can't, y'all. I've lost all the names. They're gone all the heads. So, but anyway, but like I know that was that type of tagline and storyline. But I've seen that a lot, and then like making the guy look like such a great dude because he's able to like fend off.
Yeah, he's resisting
the young women. Yeah. But that storyline of like having women compete with other women or compete with themselves and their age in order to be desirable, and it seems to be feel like that's the only notable sexualized character for the moms. It's very rare for them to look like an everyday mom. An everyday mom being, sometimes wearing leisure wear, or sometimes just wearing your stained shirts that you have because you have children or you're clumsy. That's me. Like not being always glamored up because you don't have the time or you don't have not every woman loves to do that. I will say my mother also, she came from the country boomer era of like, you never leave the house without makeup type of person as well, but that generation. But
I mean, and Andie's mom has chased after cars to tell us to put on lipstick. So she like literally has been like running down the street and been like, Sabby, put on lipstick.
No question. Yeah, this is embarrassing. But I think you're right. And we talked to, I don't know if you guys are aware of Elise Lunan. She wrote On Our Best Behavior, this book that dissects the 7 deadly sins as they pertain to how we've how women made it so women must be good in our society. And all of these things like the don't let yourself go or don't be jealous of other women but compete with them, like all of these lines that we have to toe are so, they only apply to women.
Right.
Like all of these rules, it's like you do not see the equal and opposite for a man. Women are spending so much on injectables and anti-aging, and we're all like, we've, young kids, girls getting skincare obsessed.
Yeah. And like, just look at like Bill Belichick, and he has like a 25-year-old model girlfriend. And I'm like, this would not be happening the other way around.
Right.
Just wouldn't.
There's clearly a lot we could get into, but I do feel a lot of times I've heard this argument, seen it in media, of like a woman, his wife, raises their kids, does all of this stuff, and then he divorces her for someone younger. And it's just like going back to what you said, entirely not recognizing what she was doing to do this, that she felt she had to hide usually, or like had to make it seem like it was normal, not like draw attention to it, because we get called out for that as women too, of saying like, oh, this is a lot of work.
Right, don't show the effort.
Which, if a divorce needs to happen, divorce needs to happen. But I just feel like I hear that narrative a lot of men being like, oh, divorce her, she didn't do anything for me. And it's like, she raised your kids.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was what was, I could be remembering this wrong, but like when Jeff Bezos and his wife got divorced and she got that huge settlement, I think that's what a lot of people were like kind of excited about. Like she was getting recognized she helped him make Amazon and she got like half the money. And I think people were like, yeah, she deserves half of it.
Yeah. Well, we talk about rage a lot, and we just talked to Catherine Reitman, who is the creator and showrunner and director of Working Moms. And she talks about how a big theme is like rage. And like Sabrina is like, if you knew her, like she seems very, like she's very funny and she's sharp and like she can be cutting in like a very funny way, but like she seems very mild-mannered. But ever since she's had children, she has never responded to something like Casey Wilson in her book, The Wreckage of My Presence, says, I appear to be on the surface, like very calm and collected, but below the surface, I am like
seething. The word she used is seething. And I was like,
Sabrina
that's me.
Circled it in the book, sent it to me. And I said, I gotcha. Next day, I sent it again. Like, so she's just like, so it's just like, I think this makes sense. Yeah. I'm angry at so many things that I don't even know if we made a list if it would end.
Right. And I love that. I love that, just raw emotions. But I think like what I will hope, and I haven't seen too many examples, because one of the things we love is women supporting women, but seeing shows where the mothers get to actually support each other, and being able to see them being a unit. Recently, I'm really into K-dramas, y'all. There was one, like The Love Next Door is the name of it, but it's about these two moms. Well, no, it's one of the side stories is the two moms who've been best friends and have been like around each other for so long, and now their children have grown up and all these things. But it's wonderful because you actually see an example of two women who have been best friends and have gone in families and have gone in different directions, but they support each other still. And they make sure that they understand that, yes, being a mother is a big part of me, but we are still best friends in this timeline still. And I feel like there's not enough of that. And I want to see more of that.
I love that. Yes.
No, you're so right. You're so right. Because we say that. Yeah.
Because I think female friendships are the most important relationships in your life. And I don't think a lot of mothers would survive the day-to-day if they couldn't talk to their friends about what was happening and have someone that relates to that. And I love that. I love that in so many things. Like I even watch, you know, I love a good teen drama. So I watched This Summer I Turned Pretty. And the two moms, I mean, only in the first season, because spoiler alert, one of them is passed away.
Always reckon.
I'm sorry. I didn't write it. But anyway, the two moms are the best friends. And I loved so much of that. Like loved watching them together. And I think, and we saw the new Amy Adams movie that will be coming out in a couple of weeks. And there's such great like moms supporting moms in that. And it's just great. Yeah.
Well, there's like again, I feel like you both are just going to have to come back because we have so much we could talk about. But there's such a history of, like, I'm also on a food show and we did an episode on Betty Crocker and how women felt so alone. And so Betty Crocker became such an important person to them that people actually cried when they found out she wasn't real.
Oh my gosh, that's heartbreaking. Yeah,
but like that history of kind of being a mom, being isolated. But then as we've moved forward, having those friendships and having that support and being able to say like, hey, this does feel like running through molasses every day. Am I right? Like having that and having that friendship and how important it is. Because we've also done episodes on how women usually live longer after their husband passes away in a very heteronormative sense because they have those friendships and men don't. So I think that's incredibly, incredibly important. And it's like just the value of having someone you can just vent to.
Yeah. And who, like, I noticed that, like, with Sabrina and I, like, in a lot of ways, we joke, but it is, like, sort of true. Like, she is my wife. Like, I am her wife. And there's, like, I know what it would mean for someone to take care of me. And so I try to take care of her like that. And she tries to take care of me. Like, it's just that even, like, in our business together, it's like, we do a thing where, like, if one of us gets to an email and there's a question, what the person who got there fastest is answering it and the shop is closed. Because, like, I want to take something off your plate. I don't want to give you any more, like, decisions to make or whatever. So I think, like, maybe as we age, I don't even think it almost doesn't have to do with motherhood, but as you age, you just try to realize to take care of each other in the way that we want to be taken care of. And it does come back. It does come back to you with your female friendships, I think.
With all of that, obviously, with your friendships growing, are there shows or is there something that sticks out, especially with these fictional women characters, that you can see as being advice for real life moms and just in general older women who are trying to live day by day? I say this for myself.
I think Grace and Frankie.
Oh, that's like
now I only saw a little bit, so I can't speak to the whole show. But I think that was a beautiful, and I think even just listen to any podcast that Jane Fonda's ever done because she's so she has such lasting friendships that she can talk about. I love one of my favorite shows, like top 5 shows all time, is Pen 15, and Maya Erskine and Anna Ryan Kunkel, who created the show and act in the show. Like I think that's like a whole really beautiful love letter to your best friend.
Mm-hmm.
So I always think of that. And I know that they're just young. They're like in middle school and entering high school, but it's so special feeling.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. And we interviewed Jessica St. Clair, who we just think is the funniest. We love her so much. And she created a show called Playing House with her best friend. And it's, one of them helping the other raise a baby. And that's just it was only on for 3 seasons, but it's so great. And I think people should watch that one. It's so funny. And it's so like, when you think about that, you're like, another woman would be a help with babies. That would be helpful.
Now, Sabrina did just watch a Netflix series that she told me was based on my twin flame, which was a mom who's going to go and kill.
Oh, yes. But that was a crime
documentary.
Wait, what?
Which just says a lot about my personhood.
Lost in the Fire. That is a great tale of motherhood.
She goes, there's someone on TV. That is your twin flame.
And it's just a crime doc.
Yeah. And apparently she seems like she's seeking revenge.
Yeah, she was out for revenge.
What a compliment.
You know what I mean? No, I took it as one. I did. I really did.
I mean, for all intent, maybe like, you know what? You need to be aware. This is me. So that's great.
Yeah, I said it doesn't have to be my child that goes missing. Guys, any of you call me. I'll come 5 states over. I'll have permits on the land. I'll just...
Good to know.
Andie's definitely like the fierce one in the friendship. And we have like a pact where like if there is an apocalypse, she will take the children and get them to Canada.
I won't take Sabrina.
No, she's like, you'll
Sabrina.
slow me down, but I'll take your
you'll just
kids.
slow me down. Yeah, you're dead weight. We're going to take the kids. As of right now, I've promised myself it's just me and 5 kids. And going up or down. I don't know if we're heading up to Canada or going down to, Central and South America at some point. I'll get a boat. But anyway, so I have a lot of
Hey, I like that there's realistic promises. Like you're not trying to be like cutesy and like no, you're gonna be.
You would slow the process down.
It's the nicest thing anyone could ever say to you. Yeah,
we're leaving you. I've already told my friends I'm gonna trip them. So that I'm make sure
you only have to be faster than the slowest person.
Like I'm gonna find a way. I'm just kidding.
That's
I love
it.
you, Anney.
Yeah, we know the resources will be scarce. Come on.
Gotta have these plans in place. You've gotta have these plans in place.
Well, like we saw The Last of Us. I was like, this is
don't get her started.
My favorite thing.
This is aspirational.
I know.
I think I could play that game professionally.
She can.
Anyway, thank you so much for being here.
Sorry if we really took it off the rails here.
Oh, we love that.
Thank you so much for being here. Clearly, you're welcome back anytime because there's so much to talk about with this. And listeners, go check out their podcast. Can you tell the good listeners where to find you?
Yes. So you can listen to Pop Culture Moms wherever you listen to podcasts, and please do. And then you can find us on Instagram. Andie's Andie M. Mitchell, and I'm S. Kohlberg.
Thank you so much for having us.
Good friendship right there. Because I don't know that we could do the exchange of social media for ourselves.
Oh, no, I don't think we could.
No, wait, you know what the funny thing is? I know for sure that's hers, but after I said mine, I'm like, I don't think that's mine.
No, you didn't know if it was yours.
Yeah, I don't know if mine is actually S. Kohlberg, but I know for sure hers is Andie M. Mitchell. So that's good.
Yes. Thank you for coming on. If you would like to contact us, you can. You can email us at stuffidiommomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter at momstuffpodcast or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff I Never Told You. We have a TeePublic store. We also have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer, Christina, our executive producer, Maya, and our contributor, Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.